To get more perspective on these tragic stories, we're joined by Rachel Reid, a researcher for Human Rights Watch who has been based in Afghanistan. Rachel, thank you very much for joining us on the programme.
Good to be here.
Why are some women turning to this desperate measure?
Well, it's a sign really of quite how desperate women get, women and young girls in particular, who find themselves trapped in marriages. The majority of girls in Afghanistan are still married below the legal age there of 16. Many are forced into that by their parents. And domestic violence is very widespread in Afghanistan. In a recent survey, more than half the women interviewed had experienced some form of domestic violence. And I've been to one of these burns units in Kabul and spoken to some of the girls who've been in that desperate position, and they really felt that there was nobody to turn to, nobody was listening to them.
What about the law? Aren't there laws, though, for domestic violence to protect women? Hamid Karzai has been busy rubber stamping laws around protection for women. Don't they mean anything?
Well, there are some laws to protect girls, and actually there was a very encouraging sign this year of a new law called the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which will have strengthened those laws and will actually make rape a crime for the first time in Afghanistan. But the problem is enforcement. If you have a police service and a judiciary that actually can reflect some of the deeply conservative views of the broader society, then they aren't an easy place for women to turn to for help. There was a rather staggering...
So you're saying that the culture is very misogynistic and patriarchal, which makes it very difficult to enforce any of these laws.
Yeah, that's true. And the idea is that these things should be kept within the family, and a young girl shouldn't bring shame, as it's seen, upon her family. There was a study done about when it was okay for a young girl or a woman to go to the police when she's suffering from beatings or abuse. And in only 15% of those questioned did they think it was okay for a woman to go to the police if she'd been disabled by violence.
And is there some kind of cultural context that you can give us some insight into why such a painful method of killing yourself?
Self-immolation has been seen in other parts of the region, in Iran and India, for instance. It's particularly high in the west of Afghanistan, which is next to Iran. But we see it in other parts of the country, as I say. I've seen it in Kabul. And we also see pharmaceuticals and other forms of suicide being used.
And why do you think that these incidents might be increasing now?
Well, it's not clear whether it's increasing or whether it's being reported better, and whether there are more medical facilities for young women to turn to. But certainly, despite perhaps the hope that there would be significant change and improvements in women and girls' lives in Afghanistan after the horrors of the Taliban, this still remains a deeply conservative society. And as the insecurity has grown over the last couple of years, and as President Karzai has grown weaker and become more dependent on fundamentalist factions there, actually the trends for women and girls can be negative. Despite these years of investment and support for Afghanistan.
And just very briefly, what about the abusers themselves? Are they ever punished?
Very rarely. In some cases, there was a case I've followed of a woman who was gang raped, and a really awful gang rape, and the perpetrators were put in prison, but President Karzai in the summer of 2008 freed them by decree because he wanted to appease the faction that they came from, which again brings me back to the point that actually the kind of impunity and fundamentalism that's rife within the politics there is actually as much a part of the problem as anything else.
All right, Rachel Reid, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.